start this video with like a Winifred Sanderson vibe check. The vibes are off. Oh, they really, really have gone off. It's Leanne and welcome back to another video. It's finally cardigan weather up in here and yeah, girls, excited about it. This is maybe the only thing that I'm excited about right now, so don't take it away from me. Truthfully, because I am always truthful with you guys, however difficult that may be. 2022 is just the year of never-ending blows. It's the year of every time I think, right, that will be the last disaster, we will finally put a lid on it. There will be clear sailing ahead, crystal waters. Nay, just boring, normal waters with the standard amount of sharks in. I am proved wrong, and it is just a little bit wrong, but like a big bit wrong. And the old noggin is not doing very well at the moment. It's just not. And that's definitely impacting all aspects of my life, but particularly my reading. Earlier on in the year, when there were other things going on, I reverted to mood reading, which is what I always do when I am in a really, really stressful situation, and it makes it more stressful. You would think I would learn. Apparently not. Note to self, be less of a donkey in future. Do not do the same thing expecting different results. Have a word with yourself. And when I finally woke up and smelt the bouquet of decaying books all around me, I went back to structured TBRs. We've done 2 months of those. They've been very helpful. I have been reading and finishing books, but I have also been further feeling like a failure because for neither of the 2 months of structured TBRs that I have done have I actually finished one of my TBRs, and having unfinished TBRs just hanging around in the year makes me unhappy because it makes me feel like a failure, and I don't like it very much. But BookTube, as always, delivers. Because what are people starting to do now for the lovely month which is nothing November, that being the month between Halloween and festive times commencing? People are doing their last seasonal TBRs of the year. And Leanne's little brain went ding 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 ding. I could do one of those. I could do a big maybe list TBR. But it would still have to do some structure, because I have also this year experimented with making a mood reading pool, saying here are a list of books that you are allowed to choose from when you mood read, but then it's still not actually a TBR, it's still just mood reading, because then I'm just wheel spinning in front of my bookcases like, oh, there are 12 books on this list and all of them have equal merit, which is why I put them on the list in the first place. It's dumb, it doesn't work for me, let's stop doing it. But you know what does work for me? Gamifying things. One thing about me is that if I can make a needlessly complicated and overly convoluted game out of it, I'm gonna do it. And so here we are with Leanne's once annual seasonal bingo board. But before we get into that, let me first thank the sponsors of today's video, Serious Readers. Serious Readers is an amazing little British company that manufactures the best reading lamps that you are ever going to get your hands on. Their entire philosophy is that your eyeballs are as important to them as they are to you, and they want to help you protect them, especially on those long winter nights when you want to read those really chunky fantasy books that take you away from the miserable weather, but are often presented in very small fonts over very, very many pages. By making use of daylight wavelength technology, Serious Readers have created the most epic reading lamp that is currently available on the market. It replicates natural daylight so closely that your eyeballs can basically not tell the difference, which means you are not constantly straining your eyes under weird yellow lighting. And not only is Serious Readers there to cushion the actual health of your eyeballs, but they're also there to make your eyeballs aesthetically pleased. Their lamps have tons of customizable options, from the weight of the base to the colour of the lamp to the handle. You can even add a second light head to your lamp, which means that you and anybody else sitting on the couch with you can each have your lamps dimmed or brightened to the intensity that is comfortable for you whilst not disturbing anybody somebody else. And both of those light heads are mobile, so you don't have to snuggle if you don't want to. Although it's winter, you should probably do some snuggling if it's available to you. And really, one of the things that absolutely sold me on trying out Serious Readers in the first place is that they have a rechargeable version of this lamp, which doesn't need cables tracking all over your living room, and which has a really long battery life, so you don't have to constantly lift it and move it to other places. It's not going to run out on you in the middle of your 800-page fantasy book is basically what I'm saying. Oh, and also when you have pets, cables, not so much fun. So if you would like to check out Serious Readers for yourself, then head to the link down in my description box below. You can use my code here on the screen. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. I love Serious Readers so much that you can expect to see them in a few more videos coming to you very soon. There's just nothing is going to make this better, is it? Nothing. Allow me to present her. Here she is in all of her glory. My seasonal bingo board sans categories, because we like a bit of suspense on this channel. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she practical? And isn't it a sad time when in our TBR making on this channel we're using the word practical instead of say the word obnoxiously fun. The spot 2022 has reduced me to, guys. So in our stunningly slay-worthy practical bingo board, I'm going to be inserting categories for which I must pick a book from my TBR for the months of November and December. There is a bunch of stuff going on in November and December for me. In November, lovely spouse Harry and I are going back to the beautiful little cabin in the woods that we went to earlier on in the year because we deserve it. But there's also planning afoot for 2 big projects that I'm going to be launching in December. I'm really nervous for both of them, but I'm super excited. And also in December, I am going to start curating all of the goodies for my first shop launch of 2023, and I'm definitely going to be taking you on that journey with me, so look forward to those moments of joy and consternation while we navigate manufacturers and getting some things made for the first time. And this is why this is a 2-month bingo board, because I think it's going to take me all the way through to the end of December with everything that's going on, but also because I really realistically want to allow myself extra time to get through the books that I'm actually reading. Because what I'm doing right now is avoiding some of the bigger books on my TBR and trying to finish shorter things so that I actually feel like I have read more in a month. But you guys know how much tiny books scare me, and so it's really counterproductive. Like, my brain is geared towards reading things 450 pages or up, and anything kind of like 300 pages or lower just gives me the shits, man. So I am hoping that the prompts on this board will not only allow me to read those tomes that I'm desperately in want of, which will also help me to feel extra accomplished if all I read in 2 months is 9 books. And that, my friends, is absolutely no shade. For some people, 9 books in 2 months is a tremendous amount of books, and that's amazing, you do you, boo. But for me, 9 books is 1 month. One normal, just standardly stressful month. We don't have standardly stressful months in 2022, only apocalyptic ones. So, why did I just have the urge to be like, not on today? Let's get started filling in all of the little squares, shall we? And then I will tell you what the likely contenders are in each category. So first up, we have a non-fiction. I have been woefully bad at picking anything up from my non-fiction shelves in 2022. These shelves don't even know me anymore. They look the other way when they see me on the street. Let's just read out from my Goodreads challenge exactly how many non-fiction books I have read in 2022. 12, 13, 14. Okay, out of the 69 books that I have read this year, 14 of them are non-fiction. My reading is usually a third non-fiction of all of the year. What's the third of 69? Hey Google, what's 69 divided by 3? 23. I'm like 9 books down. 9 entire books behind on the non-fiction that I should have read in 2022. So let's talk about the main contenders in the non-fiction category. Please note that all of these titles are subject to change depending on what Leanne's brain does at any given day. Terms and conditions may apply. First up, we have got The Facemaker by Lindsey Fitzharris. I actually bought this in hardback mid-year because I was so desperate and excited to get to it. So they say about good intentions. inventions. They suck, or at least apparently mine do. In a nutshell, the Facemaker is about Harold Gillies, who was a pioneering plastic surgeon during World War I. He was looking at lots and lots of soldiers who were coming back from the front with injuries unlike anything that had ever medically been seen before, because of course with World War I came the invention of a lot of new weapons, and Harold Gillies wanted to give these men some sort of justice for their service. He wanted to make their bodies functional for them again, and for a lot of them that would mean full facial reconstructive surgery, which was of course incredibly experimental at the time. Techniques that Harold Gillies pioneered are still used today in some reconstructive surgeries. Lindsey Fitzharris is just perfect. She's a perfect bridge of tone between giving you well-researched historical facts and also that information in a conversational way that doesn't make you feel really dry and bogged down in details. In short, exactly what I like best from my non-fiction. Next up we have got Roaring Girls by Kyte. I actually bought this book in the same weekend shopping expedition, so that might be the reason that they're grouped together in my brain. Roaring Girls essentially explores the stories of 8 forgotten British feminists. The blurb says, from the notorious cross-dressing thief Mary Firth in the 17th century to rebel slave Mary Prince, an adventurer, industrialist and LGBT trailblazer Anne Lister in the 19th, these diverse characters redefined what a woman could be and what she could do in pre-20th century Britain. She got a little bit croaky there because she has been singing power ballads at the top of her lungs for her stupid mental health for the past 2 days. My neighbours love me. Anyway, from the bit that I read at the start of this, Kyte also has a conversational tone in delivering her non-fiction. However, it also kind of reminds me of the tongue-in-cheek style that A Curious History of Sex is told in, which once again makes me so happy. So those are the top 2 possibilities in that category, but also coming as close seconds, thirds and however many there are by the time I finish babbling. We have got the Covent Garden Ladies by Hallie Rubenhold. This would be the second Hallie Rubenhold book that I have read. This one is about a group of prostitutes who were operating in 1757 in London, who were, without their knowledge or permission, added to a pamphlet, a kind of catalogue of services that were available by a man who distributed it amongst all of his male friends, and the pamphlet went viral, I guess, for the time, and all sorts of people were then turning up on these women's doorsteps and threatening their privacy and their safety. So it's kind of a look at early attitudes towards sex work and doxing. Oh, and speaking of cisgendered men, the next book up on this list is Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. I bought this one very, very recently. Laura Bates is of course famously the author of Everyday Sexism, which is kind of a feminism primer compiled of a lot of different lived experiences that women have submitted to Laura on Twitter about sexism in their lives and their workplaces and their families. And Men Who Hates Women is Laura's investigation into the world of incels and fathers first, men's rights movements. It just feels so wrong to say that out loud. And then finally, Beyond Belief by Jenna Miscavige Hill, which is a memoir about Jenna escaping from Scientology. It's actually quite a chunky memoir as well. My copy comes in at over 400 pages, but it was one of the first ones that just popped straight out at me as soon as I glanced at my non-fiction shelves to see what I was going to pick for this category. I haven't read a lot of memoirs this year, which is again very unusual for me. Usually they're a large part of my non-fiction reading, but I just haven't been in the place to consume other people's anxieties and tragedies as directly as that. But I have quite a few of my family mystery / investigation memoirs and a lot of true crime memoirs sitting unread on my shelves that I've collected over the past year and a half. So this one also remains a likely contender for this category. And realistically, though I am looking to complete this whole bingo board over November and December, I may hit a category more than once if I find that my reading mojo is really in the flow. Which actually brings us to the middle space on this board, which is a free choice space. I have really carefully positioned my categories around about this board to make getting a bingo a little bit easier for me, whilst also making sure that in each line. I have something that I just don't want to do so that I can get it out of the way and it can feel like an accomplishment. And so I thought that I was probably due a free space in the middle to be nice to myself. So do we go along or do we go down? I think we go along. I think we'll talk about the last space in this row, and that is going to be to finish a series. I feel like I am perpetually trying to finish some series or other. That is definitely just my modus operandi as a reader. I am constantly and consistently in the middle of one or two series. Not going to be helped by any projects that I'm starting in December. Oh, the fear is really setting in. Okay, back to the board. Back to achievable series that I could reasonably finish. So first up there is the Liveship Trader series by Rubenhold. This one is pretty much guaranteed to get finished by the end of December. So if I'm struggling to fill in this space with anything else, I'll just tick it off with that. Sometimes we have to give ourselves easy wins on our gamified TBRs. I've talked about this series quite a lot recently, so I'm not going to go over it in any great detail, but essentially it is the second trilogy in Rubenhold's extended universe, The Realm of the Elderlings. It's a series that I always get stuck on when I am doing a reread, and I am desperately trying to get to the last trilogy in this series now, which I have not read yet. And upon seeing that I was reading the first book in this series again, lovely spouse Harry was like, ugh, I really didn't like that series. I've blocked out a lot of it. I don't remember a lot of it because the audiobook narrator was awful. And so after a brief discussion, I went back and started reading it to Harry aloud. We have now finished Ship of Magic, which is the first in the trilogy, and we are on to Madship together. Granted, both the Madship and Ship of Destiny are over 800 pages, but we are reading it very quickly. We are very invested again together, so I do think this one will get finished off by the end of December. Next up is one that makes my bumhole a little bit cringy to tell you guys about. I made such a fuss about it earlier on in the year, but that is the truly devious series by Maureen Johnson. The fifth book in this series, 9 Liars, is coming out very soon at the end of 2022, and I started a reread of the series in preparation for that, and I got stuck at the end of book 2. It's always horrible when you're like super excited for something and you talk about it a lot and then you fail it on the internet. In as much as we ever fail when we're reading anything, right? I should maybe realign my thinking about it. But either way, I feel really crummy about this because after I was so enthusiastic about it, so many of you guys picked up this series and have raced through it and have absolutely loved it and are now like, I want to talk to you about it, particularly my patrons, which is difficult because I'm not there yet. So that one, I would like to finish that one. Other contenders are the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor, another series which I had just curiously never picked up the last book in, and so I was like, I shall start a reread and I shall finish the whole thing, and I read the first book and I stalled. And also A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which my good Judy, the lovely Kirsty, who shall be coming back up later on in this video. If you'd like to check Kirsty out on social media, you can find her here at Melbs Reads, where you can shade her for all of the things that she puts me through on a daily basis. But Kirsty was recently talking to me about this series and was like, you have read the third book, haven't you? And I was like, so I may also finish that series. Just as long as I finish one, I'll be semi-content. And then finally, smack bang in the middle of this row, I have put Literature Lassies. This is a new book club celebrating all things Scottish literature, which I have started with the wonderful Jean from Jean's Thoughts, Amy from Amy Talks Books, and our wonderful also Scottish friend Jill, who also just happens to be Jean's flatmate. I will pop our handle up here on screen and down in the description box if you would like to check us out on Instagram. It is a bi-monthly book club and we're having a live show at the end of November to chat about it. The first thing that we have picked for that is All Things Beautiful by Anbara Salam. Again, I've talked about this book quite a lot recently, but it is essentially about a woman who follows her missionary husband to a very remote island and very creepy things ensue. If you'd like to know more about Literature Lassies or about our first pick for it, I will also link up here and down below the video in which I announced it and chatted a bit more about why we started started it and what kind of books we're going to be reading. Is golden hour at like 12 noon now? Or is it just because I'm talking about Scottish literature and you feel like it needs a spotlight? Either way, can we tone whatever this is down? Thanks. You're messing with my mojo and my white balance, man. So speaking of book clubs, let's fill in this one in the middle of this column because that is going to be a box for my Patreon book club books. Again, I run a bi-monthly Patreon book club wherein we pick 2 different titles with 2 different genres. My patrons can read one or both of them to their heart's content. I always read both. And I have 1 book left over for our October-November slot. That is The Ruin of Kings by Jenn Lyons, which is quite a chunky fantasy book. It is about Kieran, who is a thief who has grown up poor in the slums of this world and who one day breaks into a very wealthy household and then regrets that he did. As they take him prisoner and tell him that he is there to fulfill a prophecy, he thinks maybe the prophecy is to save the world. He's not keen, but you know, whatever. However, it's not really that simple. The prophecy is actually that he's there to destroy the world. That's far less comfortable. I'm really enjoying this one, but I am reading it unusually slowly for a fantasy book. And on top of that, I will have whatever we pick for our December pick. When we started our bi-monthly book club up on Patreon, we ended up being 1 month out from it being like 2 even calendar months. And so what we've decided to do, because we're all a group of little neurotic weirdos, is that we're going to have a shorter pick for December. So we're just going to pick 1 title just for December, and then we're going to start being bi-monthly again January and February because none of us wanted to carry over anything from 2022 into the new year. We're still voting on our December book club pick, so I don't know what it is right now, but whatever it is, I'm also going to have to read that. So either I will, you know, use the free space or I will do this space twice. But we have a lot of fun on my Patreon, whether you are in the book club tier or not. We are actually having our quarterly 24-hour seasonal readathon very soon. On the 12th of November, I will be live from 10 AM to 10 PM reading with my patrons. So if that's something that you would like to get involved in, then you can head down to the link below to check that out. And then let's bottom off this row, shall we? I did mention my shady bestie, my wonderful Australian bitch, the beautiful, talented and ever so frowny Kirsty, who is both a librarian and a reviewing machine. Kirsty reads like hundreds of books in a year. Don't know how she does it. She is a medical marvel. I love her. She also scares me, which to be fair I think is the vibe that she covets, so she's achieving her goals in that. But pretty much any time that she reads something that she thinks is in my wheelhouse, she will give me a big spiel for it in our WhatsApp conversation. And the entire time that the two of us have been buddy reading together, had a podcast together, that she has known me, she has recommended so many books to me, and only like 2 or 3 of them have turned out to be duds. Statistically, that's a huge winning margin that she has right there. And so this box is going to be Kirsty pick. I am going to go back through the annals of our WhatsApp conversation and I am going to find all of the books that Kirsty has told me that I should read. That's exactly how she puts it, so it ain't going to be hard to search for. And I am going to pick one of them at random and read it because she told me I should, and I am a trash human and a monster, and I don't always do what I am told. And maybe actually getting our good books for once. Alright, let's continue along the bottom row and give you the next one. I don't know whether this one is going to make you guys scream at the screen or whether you're all just going to nod and be like, yep, that seems like it tracks for Leanne. This box is going to be Start a Series. Now it does seem like a bit of an odd choice given that one of my goals is to one of the freaking theories that I've got on the go, and I have so many contenders for what that might be. But also, I have got a lot of first books in a series on my TBR. Quite a lot of new first books in a series came on my TBR this year, in fact. And if I don't start getting through them and weeding out series that I really want to carry on with versus series that I'm like, one book was enough, then there's going to be just a mountain of them and they're going to band together and come for me in the night. So I need to actually start another new series in order to do this. I have, however, been kind of nice to myself in this regard because the two books that I think are likely picks for me to pick up when I am starting a new series are two that I've been going on about for quite a while and that a lot of you are very excited for me to pick up. Can we just please? I'm nearly finished. You've got all day to do that. I've got like half an hour. Come on. The first of those books is Kings of the Wild. Now, one of my lovely subscribers and patrons recommended this to me. That is how it ended up on my TBR in the first place. But I talked about it so much because I was so excited about it that lovely spouse Harry actually ended up picking it up and reading it and completely falling in love with it. So Kings of the Wild is a kind of very traditional swords and sorcery fantasy wherein we have an ex-gang of some sort. The way it's been described to me is, you know when you have a traditional fantasy book and the character goes on a quest and they pick up other characters along the way that become part of their band? Well, Kings of the Wild talks about one of those bands of people who got together for epic quests and raiding and killing and whatever else that they'd enjoyed doing in the prime of their life, and they're now not in the prime of their life. They have now retired and disbanded and started to enjoy the finer things, which means there's not so much working out and hefting swords and killing things as, you know, drinking a lot, having families, settling down and running nice little inns, that kind of thing. But when one of the members of this party's daughter is kidnapped, they are forced to appeal to the band of brothers to come back together again and to help them to get his daughter back unscathed, which is easier said than done because their joints hurt, man. Harry says that the tone of this one is very along the lines of John Scalzi's protagonist, so I am equally hyped for that. And the other one that I'm really thinking about for this category is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I have a special Fairy Loot edition of this series, so it's all sitting on my shelves, which is actually really nice when I'm picking up a series, because sometimes what happens is I'll read book one and then I am desperate to carry on with it, but because I don't actually have book two and I have to pick it up, I then just put it off and the urge kind of goes away. Bear and the Nightingale is a fantasy. It's a take on Russian folklore and fairy tale. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's actually set in medieval Russia. The thing is, I don't know much more about this series other than that, and the fact that a lot of people who I really dearly trust have been telling me for years that I should read this series, which is why I picked up the special editions without having read it before, something that I don't usually do. So that's also on my start and possibly my finish a series list. We'll see how it goes. Now let's do the middle one in this final row here, and for that one I have picked a backlist book. For that I want to read a book, preferably a standalone book that has been sitting on my shelves for quite a while, and by quite a while I mean 2+ years. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have very many books that actually come into that category anymore of 2+ years on my shelves without having picked them up. You guys know that I really regularly unhaul and weed through my shelves. I'm going to be doing another big unhaul before the end of the year. Yes, it will be a salty unhaul. You can stick around for that. But because I do these really regular unhauls, any books that have like been there for a long time and I have lost interest in, or I'm finding I'm skimming past when I'm choosing books, I generally just get rid of, because, you know, it's perfectly fine to say I was very interested in this book when I got it, I never got to it, and now I've either heard things that are less than favourable, or it's not the kind of thing that I like to read anymore, or it just doesn't interest me anymore. Maybe you've read that kind of premise in other books. That particularly applies to like my thriller categories. So I don't have a lot in the backlist category, but that's also why it's on this list, because I don't have very many books in it. I would like to try and just not have any books in it by, you know, reading some of them. So in this category I have got, for example, 2 Rosamund Lupton books. When I read 3 Hours I was completely bowled over by it. I absolutely loved it and I immediately bought Rosamund Lupton's Backlist, and so those books have just been sitting on my shelf since then and I have never got around to them. This one afterwards has actually been on 2 TBRs I think since I bought it, and it's been the last book on my TBR both times, and so I haven't got to it. I've also got a couple of Liane Moriarty's Backlist sitting on my shelf, specifically The Last Anniversary and 3 Wishes I think. These are her older books, so they're more family mysteries than they are like domestic thrillers like she writes now, but I would really like to finally be able to say that I have read all of Liane Moriarty's books, so I would quite like to tick these off my backlist. And I also weirdly have quite a lot of sci-fi and fantasy that I have not yet got to. I have Middle Game by Seanan McGuire that has been sitting there for quite a while. I got that in hardback and never ever read it. And I also have things like Sleeping Giants, which has been there for over a year, and I really would like to pick up some more of those. So yeah, maybe some sci-fi will see itself pop up in this category. We'll see. And then finally, the last square on my bingo board is one that I'm very excited about, because of course that I'm very excited about it because I engineered it that way. That category is new books. So although I have been on a book buying ban for the last 6 months, a few books have trickled in here and there. I have made a couple of purchases when sad book purchases. I know you all understand that one. But I also have had books from publishers and some pre-orders come in that period. And of course new books are always books that we want to pick up the most because they are new and they are shiny. And I knew when I was setting up this bingo board that I would be in danger of only picking up new shinies for everything unless I limited myself by what I put there on the prompt. So I made a box so that I could read some of the new shinies, but so that I had to intersperse them with other things. So just some of the new shinies, literally some of the new shinies that I am very excited to pick up are Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This is a portal fantasy about a young boy who is left a shed and a dog essentially when the man that he works for dies, and in this shed is a portal to a fantasy world which has been at war for many years, and he is the only one who stands in the way of its imminent destruction. I also have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. It's T. Kingfisher. It's new. I want to read it. The end. Let's see what else. I have Dowry of Blood that I would like to pick up soon, which is a sapphic retelling of The Brides of Dracula. I have The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, which is the second book in the Burning Kingdoms, I think she called it, series. And I know it's the second book in a series, but it's also a new shiny. I have a finished copy now of Stoneblind by Natalie Hayes, which I paused in Proofform a couple of months ago. My brain just wasn't in the place for really depressing myth retellings, but now, you know, really depressing things are going on around me, so I may as well have them in my myths too. And then there's just a few other bits and pieces, some of which are surprises from publishers that have just come in the last couple of days, which I would like to pick up right now, if not sooner. So yeah, I'm giving myself this category, guys. This is the new book category. This is the read a new book that you have bought, that you want to read just because it makes you happy. And realistically, all of this reading is going to make me happy. Any reading is going to make me happy, but reading new shiny things that come in might make me the happiest, am I right? So there we go. There is my not festive or really seasonal TBR for November and December. There is my challengey bingo board. I will put a copy of this bingo board down in my description below if you want to use it for yourself for November or for December, or for both if you want to join in with me. I'm obviously going to complete the whole thing off, but you might just want to try and get 1 or 2 bingos. And if you aren't joining in with my Patreon book club or literature lassies, maybe you can also use those spaces as more free spaces, or maybe you do want to join in which case those are perfectly ready-made spaces for you. As always, please tell me if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned here today and if you enjoyed them or if you did not, and also let me know if there are books that fit into any of these categories which I have forgotten or which I've mentioned before or which you think I might like a lot. And yeah, please just can we just hold some space for some good thoughts, for some just like really calm and boring months for Liane over November and December. Just calm and boring. That's all I want. Just nothing going on. I have zero capacity. We are at zero capacity for any more shenanigans. Thank you. Your good thoughts are received with pleasure, as always. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that thumbs up because it does really help my channel. And if you are new here, please consider sticking around and seeing if I do get through this bingo board by the end of December. And I will speak to you all really soon, guys. Bye! Honestly, I usually complain about this studio light, but I think I'm just going to keep it on for the rest of the day because apparently it is the only thing that actually summons the sunlight. Why are you so extra? You've hated me for a week. I'm telling you, if there's a crummy thing that Scotland can do to me, it's going to do it.